you ask is good to go, and I'm going to answer it as clearly, as cogently, and as honestly as possible. So I'm going to speak on anything you want to speak on. I don't have any qualms about that because, you know, it's important for us to be transparent with each other.
Yes. So the focus is Blaktivism. So I'm asking you, first of all, Brother Dewan, what is your best definition of activism, whether that be an originally coined notion or a borrowed notion of what activism stands for?
I'll say this. You know, I don't want to come with a premeditated thought. So the best way I can answer that, I'll talk about what I believe it is, what it's not, but more importantly, you know, what it must be. You understand? Because it must be something that serves us. Now, one thing, I spoke to this recently with a good brother of mine. I was saying that the only metric for legitimacy in regards to liberatory work is that work's ability to transform reality. And if it doesn't, then we're just, you know, pontificating and playing and hooting, and you understand, it's what I call revolutionary theater. Like, we have to get beyond the symbolism, get beyond the theatrics, and we have to understand that we must remove these people from power, you know, and that's just what it boils down to. We have to be direct with that, you know. Before we can do that, we have to say that we got to understand that's what the goal is. You know, one of my favorite scholars, Dr. Owens, always talks about, you know, people, you know, being misguided and spending too much time wondering why these people do what they do. He always says they do what they do because they have the power to do what they do. So as African people, as people who oppression, they not only benefit from, their very livelihood necessitates our oppression and subjugation. You know, we have to focus on how are we going to remove these people from power, because that's what it always boils down to, power. So that being said, when we talk about activism, which is not my favorite word, but I understand. I think that organizing is always something that's very important. I think our greatest strength is our solidarity. And when I say solidarity, that doesn't mean, you know, sweeping issues under the rug. You understand? We need to address things internally that we, you know, that keep us, you know, from being at our strongest. However, we're doing it for us. You know, we're not doing it for anyone else's entertainment and things like that. And I think when it comes to contemporary activist culture or contemporary, you know, justice culture, one of the pitfalls that we fall into is, you know, when we think of white supremacy, it plays both sides of the board. You understand? As the old folk used to say, they create the panic and they sell the pill. You know, so they will create the problem, then hijack the revolution, or hijack the reform, because it ain't revolution. Let me be clear. They will legitimize and credentialize African people and prop them up to create a veneer to other people that, hey, this is what the work looks like. So you have a lot of people running around in circles, prioritizing a bunch of silliness, prioritizing a bunch of goofy, meaningless things that you know, is never an affront to their power or their, you know, their monopoly on power. That's something that, you know, I don't want to get off topic, but we talk about this often with some friends of mine. We talk about this revolutionary theater, and I see a lot of that now, you know, and that happens. Not to, you know, I gotta go back to Dr. Owens again. He used to talk about how, you know, people can create behavior through rewards and punishment. So through creating a system of rewards where it's like, okay, we'll credentialize you, you know, we'll give you a book tour, we'll give you a, you know, we'll what's it called on social media? We'll verify you, you know, we'll give you some money, you know what I mean? So people who are striving to, I guess, drape themselves in the aesthetics of activism or woke culture, you know, then they say, okay, well, this is what I must do to be on. If this is what I must do to be an effective activist, you understand? So it's really tough. So I think for us now, we have to be serious about what this work actually entails, and that is risk. You know, if we're going to do anything that's an actual affront to this system and to these people, because again, this system is not just, you know, based off abstractions. They're actual people doing things. You understand? then it's going to come with risk. It's going to be, to a certain degree, at least some aspects of it, illegal or extra legal. You understand? Everything isn't for every platform or every conversation. You know, I think in a broader sense, as humans, and you mentioned this earlier, we won't let this fight or these people remove us from, you know, our humanity. You understand? So I think as humans, we have a goal, you know, and a duty to be about destroying all systems of injustice and replacing them with a system of you know, justice and equity. You understand? But that being said, as Pan-Africanists, when we look at things through a Pan-African lens, we have to prioritize our struggle. We have to prioritize our fight. You know, we have to go back to our mores and folk ways and, you know, things that work for us. And that being said, we also have to create anew, you know, because everything that we did, just because we did it, it wasn't right. You know, we have to get hip to the concept that culture serves us. You know, we don't serve culture. So if any aspect of that culture is not, you know, maintaining our continuity, then we need to change it. We have the right to do that. You understand?
Absolutely.
We are going to be the creators of the language of liberation. You know, to piggyback on what you're saying about Amos, Dr. Amos used to talk about how we too often give white folk the power to define.
This is
you know, when you give people the power to define, you give them the power to legitimize.
Yeah.
You understand? So we have to be the creators of the language of liberation.
Absolutely. You know, and it goes back to hegemony. That is the very idea of how hegemony works. You know, it's the whole process of legitimizing, you know, these structures, these concepts, these ideas. Your frame of reference is defined, you know, and what we're saying is that, okay, but we actually have inherent power. All we need to do is recognize and come into that power, begin to operate in that power. And so therefore, that language, we also have the ability to control. And like you said, redefine, recreate. We are people who are here to create. We have been put on this earth to create, you know.
That's right. But through defining, we create. Exactly. Through defining, you create the lens that you look through. If you let's say you watch something that's foreign to you and you try to explain to somebody, you know, what you saw. You'll say, oh, you know, I saw a couple of people that were doing let's say, from a martial arts perspective, there's a grappling art called jiu-jitsu, which is like, it's like fighting, but without strikes. It's chokes and wrestling, right? So before someone has the eye to understand what they're seeing, they would say, hey, you know, there were two guys or two women, they were wrestling. One guy got on top and he flipped them over and he did this, but they couldn't put an image in the other person's mind. But if you talk to two people who are martial artists and they explain to another guy, they can say, all right, he took him down with a single leg takedown, then he got the mount, the other guy bridged him off, and then he took his back, he finished him with the back control and then went to arm bar. So through that explanation, through those definitions, you understand, he can put an exact, not only image, but sequence in this other person's mind.
It's the cultural literacy, right? What we're talking about is the literacy to be able to define.
I think for African people, with the position that we are in, unfortunately, we have to bring what's considered activism as a base level of just existing. You know what I mean? And then what we'll call activism, it has to be so much more, only because we're so...
Wait, but I get what you mean. Like
we got work to do. You understand?
We're kind of playing catch up in a sense.
And I don't want to be, again, we want to be optimistic from a healthy perspective, but we have work to do. I'll say that we are we're out organized right now.
Yeah.
But we have the potential and we definitely have the capacity to I'll say more so than any time in history now. With the access to information, the way we can speak to each other instantaneously, with the way we can send money faster than ever before, we have to master the tools at our disposal today, and then just reorient our values. You understand? Because at this point, it is our values that really maintain us in our subjugation. It's a delicate balance, right? So, the validity of language is its ability to communicate. You understand? So it's not effective if we're saying something that is not reaching people. So I think there's a balance in finding ways to be effective while I'll say guiding, our people along, the direction that we want them to develop. But first we have to grab them. So yeah, I agree 100%.
To what extent so far would you say that your life has been informed by activism, consciously or unconsciously, based on the definition of activism that we're talking about in this context?
I think, yeah, as an African, every aspect of my life is based on, activism. You understand? Because my people are oppressed. Our people are subjugated. And once you recognize, once you understand that, if you're not a coward, every aspect of your life is going to be geared towards fighting for African liberation. And another thing I'll say, because again, like I said, as a Pan-Africanist, so I have to center African liberation, and we're part of a larger, well, I won't say larger, but I'll say a broader fight for justice in general. But at this point, and I say this often, we're beyond fighting for we're fighting for this planet's ability to sustain human life. These people are destroying the planet. You understand? And we are not doing anything. So we are just as culpable as they are. Not kind of, not almost, just as culpable, because we're playing. We're bullshitting. Now I understand, and I'm generalizing for sure, but we have, I'll say this, with the control that we do have over our time, our focus, and our values, we're not fighting this system with everything that we have. And with that, you understand, that's our burden. You understand, that's something that we can change. Have we been doing everything in our power to bring justice to the world, and for some reason, that wasn't the case, that would be different. But at this point, we're not. So to me, I take that, seriously. That's damning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we got to put the work in. We've got to galvanize our people.
So that has to be a top agenda item. But I just feel that, unfortunately, it goes back to what Dr. Amos was saying, we are a people possessed, and we're possessed by this spirit, right? The spirit that is upon us, that we're possessed by, means that we do not give due attention and care to the things that we as African people ought to. We are obeying a different master's voice. That's what's happening. So unfortunately, that's what I'm saying. We need to almost use the master's tools against him. We need to wise up and find a way to use those tools to our advantage. So what do I mean by that? Like this whole social media space, for example, it's all part of that system, right? To control. We need to find a way, and that was our focus last month when we did our Zoom. We need to find a way to weaponize that effectively to, again, move the herd. We need to find a way to move the herd in the direction of liberation, in the direction of nation building, because they're two very important and critical arms of the work that needs to be done.
For sure. I think, to speak to your point, which let me say, I agree 100%. Dr. Clark really broke this down when he said, everything that touches our life, needs to be used as a weapon of an instrument of liberation, or thrown into the ash cans of history. So, no matter what it is, and even the idea that a lot of things that we give these people credit for, it is either the culmination of the collecting of human knowledge, or just because of their monopoly on power, their ability to recruit everyone else. You understand? All genius, all human genius, for their. You understand? So this is ours. You understand? Yeah. Everything that we can use is ours. When these people, thought about and I know you're not saying this, but I've heard African people say things, and we say things like, we don't need to use this, we don't use that, or we don't listen. When we think of I'll say the Maxim gun, which really it was a game changer. You know what I mean? The Maxim gun. But even before that, things that his predecessors, the original gun. These people didn't say, oh, we're in Asia. These people came up with gunpowder. Even though they were using it for firecrackers. White folk didn't say, oh, we're not going to use it because they came up with it. No, They said we're going to take that and we're going to weaponize. Exactly. You see what I'm saying? No matter what it is, when we think of their greatest weapon against our people now, if we're honest about it, it's the creation of culture through music. They create so much of the dysfunction by weaponizing what was once a liberatory tool. You understand? Whether it's hip hop or any other type of music, doesn't matter. So there's nothing off limits. So we have to get rid of some of the misplaced symbolism. You understand?
I get you.
Yeah, I remember when I was a younger man, I was really caught up on that at one point. I was in Senegal, and obviously, French is the colonial language, and I was so hell bent on, I was learning Swahili at the time. I still am, but I was like, obviously in the American school system, I speak Spanish as well. So I was like, what 2 colonial languages is enough? Damn it, I ain't gonna like that's it. And I told myself for every colonial language, I need to speak 2 African languages. That lasted a couple months. You understand? Yeah. That lasted a couple months until I realized, like, look, our brother Sam broke this down to me. He said, when we were conquered initially, we were speaking African languages. That did not make us immune. You understand, to this happening. So that doesn't mean that we shouldn't focus. You understand, on things that reclaiming ourselves. But at the same time, ultimately, we have to focus on power. And that's what it comes. Prioritizing effectiveness over symbolism. We have people that, as much as we are a spiritual people, and I absolutely love that. But we are not a dominated people because other people are more spiritual than us. You know what I mean? We are not a dominated people because other people are more moral with us or more in touch with God. The opposite is true. You understand? Exactly. So we have to get off some of the escapism. And I'm not specifically talking about organized religion, just anything that keeps us from prioritizing, what must be done to change the levers of control in this world. We have to be serious about this, family. We have to.
For sure. With you on that. So to your understanding, how important is activism to the nation building agenda of the African community? I can use the word African with you.
It's like I said at this point, and I'm glad you broke this down to me, my sister. I appreciate it, but activism, in the way that you understand, you're breaking this down. This should be so central to what we do. It shouldn't even be a damn name. Right? You understand? It shouldn't even be. It should be the work of living. You know what I mean? Because we have to restore. You understand? For African people, for what we must do, for our ancestors who we are beholden to, for our descendants to who we are beholden to, for what we must do, activism has to be so apparent is an understatement. Like I said, it has to be so inextricably linked to us living like it's no different than breathing. We must do that. We really do not have a choice. Too many of us are just playing, and then when I think about stepping deeper into the work, because there's levels to this shit, you understand? As folks, as the young folks say, but there has to be a base level activism living to move the current forward. And then people who are stepping deeper into it, of course, there's going to be, a
greater demand. Yeah. For
sure. So yeah, it's central to our very survival.
Fantastic. Thank you. And why do you think the word activism has received a bad press historically? What is your understanding?
Yeah, so I believe, I honestly don't think this is I don't think this is decades old. I think this is a relatively new phenomenon. If I can say the activist industrial complex, you understand? Yeah. Because again, we understand who has the paper. We understand we live in this capitalist system. We already broke down what Owens says, creative behavior through rewards and punishment. So when you hijack, create, credentialize, you understand, and you control so-called activist culture, you understand, then you dictate the way people fight you. And they're only going to, again, quotations, fight you in a way that's not in affront to your power. And I was speaking this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like, by the time they concede to the demands of the oppressed, there's already a more efficient extraction mechanism in place. You understand?
100%.
They're not
100%.
changing. They're not giving nothing up unless they already got someone on the back end that's stronger. So it's like, okay, well, we don't got to do this anymore. We'll just gentrify you. So look, it's not us, buddy. You just can't afford to live here anymore. It's not us doing it to you. You understand? It's just because you're poor. You know what I mean? Or
everything changes to remain the same.
Exactly. That is exactly what it is. So again, we have the answers. We're not reinventing the wheel. We just have to listen and listen to the ancestors speaking to us. There is not a damn thing that any of these contemporary so-called activists or scholars, and I don't even want to knock, because we got family putting in real work, going to say that someone has not said that meaningful and profound way.
Right.
So what I'm not going to do is waste my time, trying to reinvent the wheel, because I know about radical tradition of scholarship. We talking about a Walton. You're talking about a Dr. Ames. You're talking about Marin Bani. Like, I'm not. Are you? Now I'm going to take the blueprint and do what I need to do and contemporize it to the extent that I can. You understand? Like nothing. There's no ideology or school of thought that's going to rid African people for the work that we from doing the work that must be done. And that's what we have to realize. It don't matter what you believe in, what you call yourself, what again, I'm trying not to be petty, but there's a lot of silliness out here. I know. It's a lot of goofiness out here.
I know.
A lot of misplaced aggression.
Yeah.
A lot of escapism. But eventually we always have to come back to, what? You're doing this because this is an easier fight.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah. Exactly.
So, it always comes back to that. So, yeah.
With you 100%. And that is, again, something for me that hopefully we can kind of touch on Zoom as well, because I think there are so many sort of nefarious actors out there that are attempting to position themselves as authoritative voices and as the sort of voice of the people. They are self-styled. They are self-coronated,
knighting themselves. And let me say this, because like I said, I don't want to be, tiptoeing out here. Besides that, brother, a lot of these, it's not that I have so much of a problem with them as an individual, even if I don't, because the African person fighting this system in a way that I don't feel is most effective, they're still not my enemy, as long as they're not working against Black people.
Yeah.
However, that being said, the problem that I have with things like that, especially something as egregious as knighting yourself, something like that, whenever someone has a problem with you as an individual, now they say that's an affront to Pan-Africanism. Now Pan-Africanism has to answer for your goofiness.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Whether it's anything against other marginalized members of the African family or anything like that. Now that's something that people are attributing to Pan-Africanism, as opposed to saying like, no, Thomas Sankara is Pan-Africanism, or Winnie Mandela, or any. So that's my gripe with some of these jokes.
Absolutely, and that is my problem with it as well. And more to the point, the problem for me is that, like you said, brother, we're at a point. This current dispensation where we find ourselves is a time where a lot of our community who aren't necessarily conscious have entered in, they've entered into a level of consciousness. They're on their journey. And unfortunately, it's people who parade themselves in a particular way that these individuals,
and because that's their first exposure to it,
they're more at risk from these characters and actors. And unfortunately, what that means is that the individual is unable to separate the personality from the ideology. Do you understand?
That's right.
They can't make that distinction. And so what they say is that this ideology doesn't sit right, whereas what they mean is that this character doesn't sit right.
100%.
You understand?
And the people that do this, they know that. They know that, because the thing
Of
is,
course.
as a Pan-Africanist, as a teacher in general, you create, you teach. So as a Pan-Africanist, you should be creating Pan-Africanists. I don't see these jokers making any Pan-Africanist organizations. I don't see these people talking about raising money, but what are you giving money to? What are you dropping paper on?
Okay.
You know, what are you building besides your social profile?
Okay.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
You understand? It makes there's no power in the world that's disconnected to other power. So when you look at some of these jokers, where their people at?
Exactly. Exactly. And do you know what it is? It's purely opportunistic. And I'm not saying specific to the sort of reference that you've made, but this is a time for opportunists as well to really kind of attempt to jump on the whole bandwagon of this cult of personality, because we're in that age where the cult of personality reigns and rules. You know, so if you can carve out a niche for yourself, right? Yeah, and make yourself appeal to a particular desire for people, the tangible. Remember, we're sensory. If you can do that, you basically have created for yourself an altar. You've created for yourself.
And it does nothing for African people. And even though, you know, again, not just about this specific brother that I'm speaking to, but even people like that, who, I will say this, I believe that our brother really does have African people's, I believe he does love African people. You understand? But that's not enough. You understand? That's not enough. You know,
it doesn't go deep enough, brother, because to me, this is what I'm saying about what is your center of gravity? Because if your center of gravity is a place where you have made Africa your holy land, and you worship and you revere and you reverence, you love it with everything that you have, you will not put your personality, your ego, your own desire and ambition before that. Never, never.
Speak on it.
You need to be a sellout for the faith. And what is the faith? Africa needs to be your holy land. That needs to be where you are coming from. And any time that becomes your compass and your guide, you're not going to be doing all these gimmicky things. You will not.
You're not. And the thing is, to me, when you love African people, you show that by how you treat African people, by what you know in real life. You understand? Like, don't talk to me about combating white supremacy and being against white supremacy, but you're always arguing with African people. You're never supporting African people. You're shaming African people.
Exactly.
You're disparaging African people. Get out of here with that. You know what I'm saying? Love is not like we have to do better. You're competing with African people. Let me just be clear. No African person who loves African people is my enemy. Even some of these jokers who I feel are opportunists or you know, silly or just scammers, because it's all not to say everybody's not doing the same thing. No, but regardless of what, they're still not my enemy.
That's right.
You can never be my enemy. You know, I just want you to stop bullshitting, or as Khalid Muhammad used to say, we just want you to come home. Yeah. You know, that's it. Even some of these coons, some of them, you know, because some of them are just opportunists, you know, and they feel like that's their best avenue. But, you know. Exactly.
You know,
as they say, cooning does not have a retirement plan. So after these people are done with you, they will dispose of you. And too often, Black people, because we just built like that, we let them back in, you know, so we need to be better about some of that too. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. Let me quickly move on because I'm just conscious of the time.
Okay.
So what is one simple form of activism that you think that we can be involved in on a daily basis?
I love this question. This for anyone who hears our sister and I speaking right now, you can do something immediately as soon as you get off of this YouTube or off of, you know, whatever you watch is on. The first and most immediate thing you can do is be aware of how you treat African people. Like I said, don't tell me you are about Black people, but you treat African people in your life like crap. So you online, you're doing this, you're doing that, but the people in your actual life, or you go and you walk past a brother and you just accidentally on purpose got to look down at your phone right when you're walking by, you know, or you see an African person who you're in a position to help. And come on, what are we doing? You know, when I think of African people, how I relate to African people and non-African people, it at every moment, it's a political act. As a Black man, as an African man, I have to be a walking anti-propaganda campaign. And I'm okay with that. So there's no one who ever going to be in a situation to say, well, you know what? A brother never did this for me, or a brother never did that, or a black person never did that. Can't do it. We have to be aware of that. We have to reinstill faith back into, I'll speak to men specifically for a moment, but African men especially, we have to reinstill faith back into our community, and African people in general. We have to reinstill that trust in each other. You understand? Mm-hmm. We have to give each other space. We have to give each other grace. It doesn't mean be, like a doormat for somebody. You understand? But give each other the same type of patience and grace and space that you give these jokers who have done things that no African person could ever do to you. You understand? So yes, we can see them as individuals, but black people, sometimes we become the totality of the worst that black people have done to each other. We got to get off the goofiness and stop with these double standards.
I just want to pause for a minute. Because I think that's wonderful. That's such a wonderful expression of what activism is. And I thank you for that. It's conscious engagement with one another, yes. Being very intentional about not hating each other. Not necessarily loving, because I think love is something that needs to be developed. Do you understand? As a people, we need to develop, sure. But not hating each other. Let's just start with not hating each other.
Yeah. And if something can be taken two ways, take it the best way.
Yeah.
You understand? Yeah. Unless you have reason to believe otherwise. Yeah. Let's not assume the worst in each other.
With so much sort of competing for our attention and attempting to distract us, how do we sustain our commitment to activism?
I mean, that's another one that I got to be kind of heavy-handed. How do we, all right, if something is suffocating you, you're going to try to breathe harder. You understand? So when we talk about sustaining our commitment to act, like our lives are tied into our ability to actively fight against these oppressive systems and create a world anew. We don't have any choice. And I think it's not even about just what we're doing. I think it's about what we don't do or what we don't partake in. Rejecting escapism. You understand? Is a major key, because it'll keep you sober to the reality. There's nothing wrong with, obviously, some of the, I guess I'll say, the different things people do to decompress, but be aware of when you're doing it to escape a reality, because once that high wears off, once whatever it is wears off, you got to come back and confront those problems. So let's not do that. Let's not keep pushing it on future generations. Let's stop. Too many of us are trying to, survive for a little bit of time and just find our comfortable little space in the slave quarters. Come on, let's really fight this thing. Let's boss up. Let's start celebrating each other. Let's support each other. Let's be happy for each other. There's enough, like we have work to do, and our faith, a Pan-Africanist template and something essential. Our faith, obviously, our history is tied, it's tied together. You understand?
For sure.
It's tied together. So even if you want to care about me for your own selfish reasons, fine. Do it for yourself, because you need me to stay alive to save you in the future, and vice versa. So regardless of what, our fate is still, intertwined. So, we must really be and stay aware of that.
You said something very interesting there, and I don't know if you've got time to expand on that, but I think
I got all the time for you, family. What you got, sister?
I think is very important. The difference between decompressing and escapism. I think it's very important for people to understand the distinction.
Yeah, I think so. One thing I'll say, when you feel you need something, you think about who that thing you need is serving. Who really benefits from the way we choose to decompress, right? I'm hearing a lot of young folk, especially in these activist circles, say things like self-care, self-care. Or what is it that these jokers are? I got activist burnout, little goofy shit like that, right? Don't get me started on that, because I'm going to try to not to be, annoying here. But activist burnout. But anyway, when we think of that, don't please, I'm trying not to be petty. But when we think of self-care, okay, fine. But does it always have to be a self-care? But we are paying somebody else or it's some type of consumption. You know what I mean? Consuming some service that's not from us that benefits other people or something that's solely based on damn vanity. Come on now. Some of this stuff makes no sense, Exactly. No, man, every time I think of something, there's always so many quotes I could say from Amos that speak directly to this. But I think escapism is never something that builds you up or empowers you. You understand? So if I say, and it doesn't have to be, whether it's, eating healthy or working out, it doesn't always have to be something like that. But I think it's just being aware that there's not a dependency on something, because escapism is dependency. You understand? It is dependency, and it's never something that when you're not doing it at that moment benefits you when you're done. I think that's a key characteristic of escapism, because if I like doing something, right, it can benefit me even after I'm done doing it. But usually when we talk about escapism, after I'm doing that thing, I'm usually still in the same situation with no benefit before that. You understand?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, the reason why I think that point is important to major on is kind of similar to what you were saying about the time that we find ourselves in, where a lot of people believe that they are doing the works, whereas it isn't necessarily the works. It is, to me, escapism. And it's a way to, I suppose, feel good, validate themselves, and make themselves feel as though they're making a contribution. That's right. And I think it's very, very important that if we want to be sincere and if we want to commit to this wholeheartedly with true fidelity, that we make that distinction and actually take time to appraise ourselves, do a self-appraisal, in order to really understand, because you shouldn't be getting burnout if this is what you're doing from your heart, right? If it's
do you hear me?
Work, what do you hear me?
It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle.
Exactly. You
don't get burnout from just living. Like, it's a lifestyle. When you're forcing something and you're doing it in a way that is forced upon you, then And I told myself I was going to chill, but I got to do this. I got to do this.
Go on,
so, one thing Amos used to talk about is that this system, and we think about the type of propaganda campaigns that these people put so much money and effort toward. You understand? He would say something like, first they brainwash you, then they give you freedom of choice, so you're free to choose the wrong thing. You understand? I think sometimes the choices that we make are things that we've been socialized or conditioned to want. You understand? Freedom of choice, so you're free to choose the wrong thing. That's right. Recreating and reprioritizing ways that we recharge that are beneficial to us, and the goal is something that's very important.
For sure. Because I think, to me as well, like on that decompression note, to me, decompression is about balance.
There it is.
Do you understand? Whereas the opposite of that is burnout. It is burnout, and you burn out because you're not starting from the right place. Whether you do it knowingly, consciously, or unconsciously, you're not starting from the right point, which is why I say it's about that self-appraisal. So you are able to actually make that distinction. Yeah.
Or sometimes I think in these contemporary spaces, because again, I don't want to get too off topic, but I think sometimes with the contemporary justice spaces, we're socialized to think that, all oppression is just some hodgepodge stew and everything is the same. So if you call someone the wrong gender pronoun, that's the same as anti-Black state sanctioned violence. Now, I don't want to get too on top of that because I'm not going to be able to not be petty, but I just want to use that example. And the problem when trying to do and be right, you get caught in this paralysis by analysis, because it's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it the wrong way. I don't want to. Like, well, what are you doing? Why are you fighting? How are we going to let someone else tell us the way we created this tradition of resistance and activism, us. You know, we are from the Black radical tradition. How the hell am I going to let somebody else who's protesting that their school, you know, don't have a higher grade damn lunch meat to tell me what the hell I'm supposed to do? We got to get off of this silliness, or thinking that we're supposed to speak on and be experts about every single thing that happens. That's just impossible. So you see people scrambling, trying to do their Googles, as the young folks say, so they don't step on any toes about whatever the contemporary buzzword is that changes every week. We got to get off these gaps. Let's just be about liberation. Let's be about justice. To the extent that we can, let's not, you know, harm anyone else who is not harming us, but let's be about our work. That's it. We have to focus on that.
Let's not get pulled into things that don't concern us. You know, I'm concerned about.
If we're honest about it,
honestly,
if we're honest about it, some of us, it comes from a feeling of, you know, wanting to be legitimized by being in accord with other people who are part of other groups. That's it. Oh, 100%. So I've got someone who I'm rocking with that's not African. So now this fight is more legit. I mean, I don't know how many times I heard it last year in the summer, you know, when our brother George Floyd, you know, this state-sanctioned terrorism, you understand, this was an execution.
Yes.
How many times I heard these jokers on the news saying like, oh, so-and-so, and there was a lot of white people and a lot of white kids out there marching too. What the fuck do that mean? Do that mean it's legit now? Do that mean, oh, now it's real? Now it's valid? Us saying this stuff. African people saying this. It wasn't just us out there. What does that mean?
For me, it's meaningless, to be completely honest.
I love our people, but sometimes I want to shake the...
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, this is what I'm saying about looking for, in a sense, looking for approval or acceptance of the system. And it's like, this is precisely what we're not trying to do.
These people are the last people on the planet that are in a position to give someone a moral pass or critique. The absolute last. The only difference is they have the power to legitimize their criminality.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. That's it.
And we know these jokers will make, break, change the law, choose when and when not to enforce it. We see that with marijuana. We see that with the criminality of crack, but the medicalization of them, you know, opioids. Come on, you know, we gotta just be consistent and stop playing. And let me say this before, because I don't want to get lost in this. To start, popped in my mind. As Pan-Africanists, as African people who are committed to African liberation, in the now, we have to, including myself, be and do better about creating a Pan-Africanism in action. You know, it can't just be commemoration of our heroes and heroes of the past. We have to get off of that stuff. We have to stop talking about how great we were and use that greatness to inspire us to do this work in the now.
Thank you.
We really have to be very, very serious about that. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Because it was actually, you know, those people, like you said, it's wonderful, you know, to, you know, eulogize, memorialize, to recognize and give them their dues. But they didn't do the works that they did for us to do that.
You hear me?
Do you understand? They left it for us to as a blueprint.
That's right.
So that we can actually liberate. That was the whole point.
That's right.
You know?
So look, it just popped in my mind. I told you I was thinking about this Amos score and it left me out. And something just pulled it from me, but you know, it came right back. When Dr. Amos was talking about if our study of history is merely an exercise in feeling good about ourselves, feel good history, then we will die feeling good about our Black selves. It can't just be enough about, you know, feeling good. It has to be weaponized and structured in a way that galvanizes us to do things in the here and now.
It needs to be progressive. If it's not progressive, what on earth are we doing? Do you know what I wanted to ask you, brother?
Yeah, anything.
What I wanted to ask you, you mentioned something earlier on that is a very sort of, it's quite a, I have a very strong position and view on it.
Tell me.
You mentioned justice and equity. And I wanted to really understand from you, do you believe that such ideals exist? Do you believe in justice? Do you believe in equity?
Oh yes. Oh yes. I think.
What does it look like then?
Well, let me say, because something isn't actualized or consistent, it doesn't mean. See, it's the pursuit of something. It's the striving for something that brings balance. You understand? So it's in our belief. The power is in our belief that not only does this exist, but it will come, that creates something good enough to maintain the balance. Because let me tell you, people, I'll say enemies of humanity, lack of a better word, they believe in what they do. You understand? Because they benefit from it. But the moment that those who fight for justice, those who want to create a world free of oppression, don't believe, if not equally, more so than they believe in that, then we've lost. You understand? So we're not just fighting against something. We're fighting for something. Because I'll be honest, I don't want our people to be in perpetuity, be fighting against this injustice. I want to create at some point. We want to create a world. Now maybe we'll have to defend that world that we create. You understand? But that's fighting downward. Right now we're fighting upward. We're fighting against the world that has already come to fruition. You understand? That's maintained by the subjugation and oppression of African people. You understand? So we have to believe and fight for what we believe in, with the understanding that we can create that. Because if we do not believe that, if we don't believe that these people can be removed from power, if we don't believe that we can create a world that does not create some other system of great injustice, then we're not going to accidentally create it or stumble upon it. We got to know. We got to not only believe that, we got to know that. We got to fight for it with that belief.
Yeah. My position in life generally is that there are no absolutes, right? So what you're saying to me is about relative justice for us. So it's relative to us, right? And a relative sense of equity, which in a sense seems like a bit of an oxymoron. But the thing for me is that where there are no absolutes, I personally feel that, it's kind of zero sum. One man's, and it's binary. Like the world around us is binary. We understand it to be binaries, right? One man's liberation ultimately must lead to another man's, not necessarily oppression in the way that we understand the word, but discomfort. Let me just put it as that, discomfort.
Yeah, but some people's discomfort, they'll have discomfort because they can't oppress you.
No, I know.
So they're not
exactly, but that's
So
so that's what I'm saying. It's relative.
We gotta be willing. We've got to be willing to make sense of. We've got to be okay with some level of contradiction. Not with liberation, but I'll give an example. If I'm sweeping the floor in the kitchen, now I'm sweeping dirt off the floor. But you and I understand, if we have a microscope or whatever, there's going to be dirt on my shoe that I can't see. I can't say, well, I don't want to sweep the floor because there's always some microscopic dirt, getting up on this thing. It's the act of doing and the act of striving that is, I can't say the purpose of living, but what we do to live. You understand? Yeah. Now we can, like you said, create a world where my liberation does not mean someone else's subjugation. We can surely do that. Yeah. But does that mean everyone is going to be happy with that? No. But I'm okay with that.
Of course.
Does that even mean that in the pursuit of that, that will be messy at times? That there won't ever be any type of collateral at times? Well, we got to think about the collateral that it took for this world to start existing. You understand?
Yeah.
So as a, I won't say a soldier or a general, but as we look at this from a militaristic perspective, what must be done has to be done for, the greater good. You understand? Yeah. I never want to put somebody in a position where they have to say, would you save 10,000 people and sacrifice one people? I don't want to put someone in that position. But the answer to that question is obvious. You understand?
Yeah. That's fair enough.
Anything where you're not in the world free of oppression, and it is not actualizing the gift of life in the way that we all deserve. I don't use the word deserve often, but one thing I know as someone who's born, we deserve what we should have been born into.
Yeah.
You understand? So that being said, yeah, that is my biggest inspiration for what a world that we want to bring to fruition. Not just resisting for the sake of resisting, but resisting because this world that exists is predicated on evil. Not to be hyperbolic, but this is a wicked system.
At all. That's
and we too often we ain't tripping on it until we see something that's an affront to our sensibilities. See, this slow death, this capitalist death, we don't mind that because that ain't as immediate and that ain't as exact. We can victim blame. You understand? But once we see something that's just an affront to our sensibilities, oh, this bad guy took this child and broke their finger and I saw it. So now we got to do this. But when you talk about millions of babies that same age being sexually assaulted, you know what I'm saying? I don't even need to give the examples. You understand? But we don't see that though. You see? So this is an evil system. This is a wicked system. You understand? So destroying that is the goal, and being reminded, because we see these glimpses of beauty in life all the time. There's children laughing, whether it's the look you give someone you love, that the moment where you teach someone something that they didn't know and they understand it, how you felt, how they felt, all of these little glimpses. You understand? That's what keeps me going. That's my goal. That's my priority. You understand?